Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. We are not alone, but we are lonely. Written by JCB 112. We were fools to believe that the alien mind would be in any way similar to that of the humans. We had deluded ourselves into our elaborate and carefully constructed fictions that the alien would mimic us in how we attained the wonders unlocked by the unlimited potential of our sapience. We had lied to ourselves for centuries, to the point that we had contingency after contingency for the inevitable first contact. First, we prepared for what would happen if a far superior force was to arrive on our doorstep. But that never happened. Then we prepared for what we would do if we were to encounter an alien polity in passing, in message, or through some mode of indirect communication. But that never happened. Once we'd mastered FTL, we would then plan and brainstorm an elaborate scenario on what we might do should we physically encounter any aliens on or above our playing field. But even that didn't happen. For decades, centuries, and now millennia, we'd planned and planned and planned, to the point that we were delineating between what was the plot for the next major holofilm series and what was the next big government-sanctioned plan for another inevitable first contact scenario become nigh impossible. It had been a literal millennia since we left Earth, before we finally came into contact with the first forms of alien life. Actual, intelligent life, not some bacteria in a pond or some bird soaring above an arboreal forest, but an honest-to-God's actual intelligent life. Yet, the life we found wasn't the sprawling interstellar empire that we'd come to expect, nor was it a localized power in an interstellar heyday, or even post-war rundown hellhole of roving pirates and bandits. No. Instead, what we found were primitives. Primitives that could have very well have been overlooked by our explorers, were they not observant enough to spot small plumes of smoke scattered in geometrically distant patterns dotting the planet. In our haste to explore the stars, we'd failed to account for the primitives. Our primary senses were focused around the unmistakable traces left behind by technologically advanced civilizations. Our simplest form of detection was radio, followed by measuring distant emissions generated by industrial civilizations, carbon, methane, and natural emissions that would taint an atmosphere. And for the far more observant, taking telemetries of the planet to discern irregular surface patterns correlating with the expansion of cities or bunkers. Indeed, our detection systems for the simplest of civilizations had been algorithmic interpretation of farmland from orbital imaging, which would have indicated an agrarian civilization. We thought we prepared for every eventuality, but it was clear that we had not. It was at this point that we turned our exploration ships back towards the epicenter where our efforts began. We backtracked, combing through star systems and clusters, tracing over every step, scanning each life-bearing world with meticulous scrutiny. It was then and only then that we realized the grave oversight in our previous approach. For at the end of this re-examination, 3/4 of all catalog life-bearing worlds were reclassified as sapient-bearing, the repercussions of which shocked the Earth and her colonies, the implications of which were unknown at the time, but would quickly bring humanity into a state of collective existential dread. For the first contact missions initiated with the aliens revealed a common yet disturbing trend. These civilizations, if they could even be called that, had existed not for a mere few millennia, or even tens of millennia, but had in fact existed far longer than the total extent of human race's pre-recorded history, long before our ancestral line had even crawled out of the primordial soup. These aliens, these people, hadn't fallen from grace either. There was no evidence as to some systemic collapse or any trace of advanced technologies. that all, well, and truly, nearly stagnated. A great filter scenario was suggested, and it was later confirmed by our xenoanthropologists. These aliens, whilst proven to be indeed intelligent and quite reasonable, had answered similarly when pressed to the question of their stagnant state of being. The translation software wasn't perfect, but it effectively boiled down to this one universal sentiment. We don't need anything else. They were satisfied with what they had. They desired for no more than their next hunt, their next feast, and the continued survival of their tribes. They wanted nothing but simple continuity and held no drive. It was difficult to put into words, even more convoluted to read the thick and frankly jargon-filled reports of those xenoanthropologists, save for this one excerpt from the conclusionary statements in their now groundbreaking paper. It is within these findings that the Council for the Study and Assessment of Xenological Anthropologic Studies has deemed the state of pre-agrarian existence to be the status quo. Humanity, in stark contrast, remains the only species to breach what we are now calling the creative gap, where these aliens remain satiated by their limited abilities, taking the safest decisions to ensure the continuation of the limited societies. Humanity has instead consistently taken risk after risk for gains that would be considered unimaginable to these aliens. This study concludes that humanity is the outlier, and the aliens are in fact the norm. The aliens have taken the path of least resistance, while humanity has, and still is, resisting the whims of nature herself. It's difficult to imagine, perhaps even impossible to really picture how alien these aliens truly are. Trapped in their worlds, trapped in their villages, in their small communities, not incapable of understanding our sciences and technologies, no. In fact, some of them seem to be able to pick it up quite quickly. Instead, they are unwilling to do so. Even the illegal offers from some of our disgraced and rebellious scientists were turned down without exception. Offers ranging from visiting space to the introduction of farming, of writing, of industry, and the keys to civilization were all turned down without hesitation. We stand now as sole inheritors of the Milky Way, alone and lost in our ambitions for a greater future. It was clear that many of us wanted there to be some sort of roadblock for our expansion. We wanted the opposition. We craved the challenge. We wanted to be the underdog fighting against some totalitarian hegemonic alien empire. We wanted to be a part of the space-faring interstellar federation as a young, uppity, and feisty species. We wanted to kick, scream, claw, and connive our way to the very top. We wanted to be the outlier, but not like this. Yet, here we were, at the very top, by the very nature of our existence. It wasn't fair. It was only yesterday, however, that we received a radio signal, not from our own galaxy, not from our own exploration vessels leaving the Milky Way, but instead deep within Andromeda, an alien signal. One which bred the same sense of despair eerily similar to our own. Is there anyone out there? Please, anyone? We are the Iltaxi of the Iltaxi Federation Union. We wish for peaceful dialogue, for any dialogue. If anyone is out there, please respond. Our home galaxy is empty, and we are the only ones. It was then that we realized. Perhaps then it wasn't the fate of interstellar empires to be plentiful in a single galaxy. Perhaps then the great filter wasn't truly at all encompassing. Perhaps our dreams of an interstellar alliance was in fact possible. We sent a message back, one that was limited by our transponders and our current technology, but one that held the hopes and dreams, a cumulative experience of an entire civilization. Iltaxi, we read your message loud and clear. Greetings from humanity. Greetings from the humans of the United Earth and her colonies. We are here, and our home galaxy is likewise empty. But know this, you're not the only ones. You are not alone. End of story. I just quickly want to thank the Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Alithia Barkey, Cam Maxwell, Casper Arnholtz, Albard and Guster, Arcadian, Lord Azrakal, and Joachim Backer.